I wanted to learn how to actually do an off market without, because remember, it's off market. So I don't want the agent involved in this. You could probably mess my deal up, which she almost did. This time I knew for sure, like, okay, I know the next steps. I know.
You knew you had a good deal.
I knew I had a good deal. So I'm like, okay.
And you knew the next step. Okay. Well, I'm excited, Dwayne, to talk with you. You have a really cool story that I'm excited to dive into and break down. And what I really like about this experience you've had on your first deal is you use Flipster, my software, to help you do the deal. And so I'm pretty excited about that. I want to hear how that's been useful. But let's start with you and how you got started. From what I understand, you were in the learning phase for quite some time, 2 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
2 years. So tell us where you're from, how you got started. Tell us why you were, learning about wholesale real estate for 2 years before you decided to take action. What maybe what was going on? Was it off and on, lacking consistency? Like, what was it? Did you not feel ready, or were you scared? Like, maybe help get some visibility on that. But tell us a little bit about you and your start.
That's how I learned, watching the shows and watching other people that was actually, I was in their situation, and, I took action. So, it was basically, it started, a couple years, it took me a little while because, as you said, it was like not really trusting the work, or just thinking that I'm not capable of getting it done. But, I studied a lot, I was around, good people. I was networking, I was around, strong people that was helping me, but it was just based all on me. So, it just took a little while, Jerry. I don't know. I guess it was fear and, thinking about like, if I make a mistake, and, so it was just holding me back, and then, something just happened. I was, networking, doing a lot of talking with people and and I met up with this realtor from down here, where I'm at, and actually in where I got the property in Maryland, so, but it started, as you said, a couple years ago. I was in it trying, just networking, and it just.
What were you doing, and why was it important? Like, why were you trying to learn wholesale real estate? Why was that valuable to you?
I mean, because as you said, it started from the beginning where, I would say like, well, as I said, 2 years I was in it, but it started way before that, man. I could say about like 2000, my mom's, passed away, and we had our property, and this investor came in, he bought the property. So that's where it all started. You know what I mean?
You saw him buy it as an investor, and you were like, well, wait a minute, what's that guy doing? How do you do that? And
what's going on here?
What's going on here? Yeah.
Long story short, the guy, I'll never forget his name. His name was Rudy. That was in the year 2000. And he told me he was an investor in the area. That's when I was in New York, in the Bronx, and he said he was buying, he's an investor, and he's buying a lot of properties in this particular zip code where I was at the time. And he said, he bought 9 properties in that zip code, but the one of them specifically, he's going to keep for himself. And the one that he's going to keep for himself is the one that he's actually buying from us. That was actually at the time my brother and my mother had owned it, but my mother had passed away, and my brother was he just wanted to get rid of it, distressed seller, didn't know, certain things. So that's where it started. And I was always
25 years ago. 25 years ago.
And it's so funny that you're saying that, because today's what? Today's the 9th, and Sunday, the 13th, makes 25 years since my mom's passed away.
Wow. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, it started from.
Now, do you know what he did with your property? Did he wholesale it or keep it, or what do you do?
You know what's so funny? After all these years now, because I'm an investor, because I have access to the tools now and everything, I started doing my homework and look back, because I know I could go back. And then I saw, like, it's crazy, man. That property, we got that property for about, like, I would say, if I'm remembering clear, like a little bit under 300,000 at that time in 2000. And now that property is worth over $1 million in 2025.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, the hardest thing in real estate is to look in the rearview mirror, because like whenever I do that, I get depressed too. Cause I'll look back, I got started 20 years ago, And I was wholesaling houses where I'd get them in Detroit for like 20 grand and I'd wholesale them for 30 or whatever. Those houses are worth $200,000 now. You know what I mean? But you know, that's the name of the game. And they used to kind of bother me. Like I would think, man, I wish I held on to more or whatever, but honestly, to me, that's somewhat of a scarcity thought or mindset, because at any given time, when you learn how to acquire good deals, you can buy good deals, because good deals exist and they're only good deals relative to what's going on. So It's a good deal today because of today's market. In 10 years from now, who knows? I mean, we do know that it keeps going up in time, you know, consistently on average, but at any given time, whether it's today or in 5 years, I can get a good deal because I know the principles of finding good deals. So, you know, it just has to be the right time for things, and you're in a process of growth, and you know, you are who you are today because of the things that have happened to you, good and bad. That's what's made you who you are today. And so you really have to give yourself a little bit of patience on the past you. A lot of people, I've done this, beat yourself up over the past you, the older previous version of you, when really two things, we can't change it anyway. And two, that's what's made you who you are today. And would you be who you are today if you didn't have those things happen, good and bad? Probably not. So all we really can do is look at, who am I today? What are the things that I really want to do and become? And where's the vision I have of my life and the projections I can create for my life? And then what do I got to do to really make that vision just shine in all you do? It's really funny because, you know, I bought this farm property in Tennessee, and this is just one example in my life, but I've got in my mind, like I can see in my mind's eye what I want to create. And once I get clear on that, nothing stops me. Like I just do the things. And even though it's not there yet, you know, I do every day I wake up and I do the steps that are going to move me closer to that. But you can't move in the direction you're trying to go if you don't have a clear vision of what that looks like, and be humble enough to change, because you're going to continue to change. So maybe that shifts a bit. So you're not so stuck on your ideas that you can't be flexible. But when you have a clear vision of what you're trying to create for your life and your family's life, or the impact you want to have in the world, then you don't need motivation. No, nothing needs to motivate me. I don't wake up and be like, man, I wish I had some motivation today. I jump out of bed because I'm so excited for the vision and the dream I'm building, the life I'm trying to build, that I instantly have constant motivation. So I don't even understand the concept of like get motivated. I know that's a thing for a lot of people, but I just think you lack vision. If you need motivated, it's because you lack vision for what you're trying to build in your life. So, you know, I think Dwayne, that's really powerful for you to think like, man, I caught a glimpse of something that I didn't quite know, didn't understand, had no idea about. Looking back now, you know, I bet it's easy to look back and go, why didn't I do what I did recently then and start investing and stuff, you know? But here you are, and you're doing the thing. So I'm proud of you, you know, and it doesn't matter how old you are, how long it took. None of that really matters, because it all had to play out the way it did for you to be where you are today.
Correct.
You know, but that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that, you know, 25 years ago is when you were first introduced to all of this. And here you are full circle.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I like your transparency and honesty about the hard parts of this. And, you know, because what you had shared was, it took 2 years. It actually took much longer because you knew about this stuff and were sort of, you know, maybe dabbling or whatever, but help me understand, you know, you had these certain things fall into place for this deal to happen, but you had to, at some point, gain enough confidence to take that next step that's going to lead to a contract, signing something, you know, going out and finding a buyer, all the things.
Yes.
What did it take for you to finally say, I can do this and I'm going to take these steps to make this happen?
Tell you the truth, Jerry, I kind of like I knew a lot already because I'm also at the time I was a licensed agent, so I had that on the back end, so I knew how to like do comping and do all this stuff. I was very good with that. So what really made it like it was just the deal. I had the realtor. I was networking with a realtor out here, and she always reached out to me regardless of what was going on. And then she just reached out to me one day and said, D, I got this seller here, would you come look at this and see what you could do? So, it was just like that.
What did you tell her? You're looking for deals. Call me if you get a deal. Like what was how did she know to call you?
By watching what you said, by letting her know, like, this is what I'm doing. If you find a deal and you see that you can't list it, or it's going to take a long time or whatever, you could, reach out to me and, maybe we can, strategically work it out.
How many conversations like that do you think you had with different people and agents and stuff, networking?
A few. Lately, a few, because as I said, I've been watching your shows and watching a lot of people. So I've just been, taking little pieces here and there. And, I said, I'm not really a camera guy. I don't really like to talk and network and stuff like that. But I know that's like my main downfall, because I don't really put myself out there. I don't get uncomfortable and get, what I mean? I shy away from things sometimes, but I do know a lot, what I mean? And when I'm around people and I start to express and talk, and, it starts to just naturally comes out. You know what I mean?
You should more. You're good at it. You're very, I try to think that I can read people somewhat. And Dwayne, I just feel like you're authentic, you're real, you're down to earth, you're personable. Let that shine. The world needs you.
It's so funny. One of my friends, man, he keep telling me, man, like, yo, D, man, you got it, man. Like, you just need to just let loose. You built everything. This is what you built it for. So don't shy away, and I get it, but that's what it really was. The realtor just reached out to me. Yep. And I had the conversation with her prior to her reaching out to me. Like, yo, listen, you find these leads, you can't get them listed, but you're talking to the sellers. You could just let them know, listen, this property might ain't gonna sell. If I put it on the market, it might take a little while, whatever. But I do know this investor that buys cash and stuff like that. So if that comes up, would you be, would you be listening to that? And then she, I guess they said, okay. So she just was just searching until one day I was just sitting in my house, regular day, just chilling, doing paperwork. And then she called me, D, you got this property. You want to look at it? And I looked at it, and then it was like a little nugget.
Yeah.
It was a little nugget in my pocket. And I'm like, wow.
Because it was off market. It was a lead from the agent, but she didn't want to write the contract, and you wrote the contract on that one.
It's not that she didn't want to write it. I wanted to learn how to actually do an off market because remember, it's off market. So I don't want the agent involved in this. You could probably mess my deal up, which she almost did. You know what I mean? Almost messed it up. But God worked it out. We everything went through. But yeah,
So you comped it, made an offer, and did they just accept that, or did they?
No. Basically, what happened was she came with the lead. I looked at it real quick. I just went to Zillow. Boom, looked like what you trained. But as I said, I'm an agent, so I looked and I seen what was going on, see what was flipping around in the area, and I noticed that look at this. The comps is good, but the as is sale is even better than what I got it from, what I got it as. So I'm like, okay, I could use the comps, but since it's my first deal, I just want to get this off, man. You know what I mean? I was just trying to learn and just get this one off. So I'm like, yo, listen, if I got this at this price and this is going at, at 20 to 25 more, that means I can actually assign, I could sell it. So that's what I did. I put an offer in. He didn't accept it right away. I put in, what he said. He wanted, because what happened was the seller was an appraiser, but he knew
the value.
Correct, because what he did, he actually appraised the property. So I'm like, oh man, he's gonna want top dollar, because if he's an appraiser, he gonna want top dollar.
But what was the appraisal amount?
The appraisal amount came out to 70,000.
Okay.
So I'm like, yo, okay, there's properties right over here that's selling for that as is. And I'm like, damn, man, this one is, his was like a little more in a distress, because it needed everything. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm like, okay, even if it's worth that as is, I could probably work him down. So now what came into play? The strategy, as we say. All right, okay. What is his motivation?
Mm-hmm.
So his motivation is like, yo, he want to just go. He has his family. He want to take this money and help his daughter and son just to start to get, like, you know, a little property to start. Okay.
So he had urgency to sell it.
Correct. Urgency. That's what I was looking for. What was his urgency? Okay. Now, what was his, how long do you want to get this right away? You know, because I can close within 20 days, you know. He's like, yo, the quicker is better. Okay. Now, what's the condition of the property? I saw it because he appraised it and sent it to me PDF. So that was great for me as the investor. Like, right. So I'm like, okay, nice. So now what's left? A offer. So I just said, okay, 70. I'm like, damn, man. So I just threw a number out there because I'm like, I know if I could get it at, I said 30.
Awesome.
And he was like, so what was happening, we was going back and forth through the agent. So that's what almost made it go, because I'm like, yo, listen, I can talk for myself. You got me the lead. Let me take it from here. But I guess the agent, she wanted to be involved a little bit until I had to let her know, listen, I'm standing guard. You got me the lead. Let me take over. Once everything is done, I will compensate you for you bringing me a lead. So you don't have to do anything from here right now.
Yeah. Get out of the way. Agents screw up more deals than I can count. I mean, so many times I'm like, get out of the way. I can get a deal done here. We're playing telephone game here. Like, I don't need you to relay back what I'm trying to say. Let me do it. You know,
I can do this. So I said to her, I said, okay, you know what? We're going back and forth. So he came back with a counter and said 50. So I said, from 70 to 50?
Yeah.
Okay, he's really ready. So I just went back. I said, yo, listen. I just went back to the realtor. I said, listen, tell the seller 40,000, 20 days to close, $1,000 down, earn it EMD. If I don't get it done, he keeps the $1,000. How does that sound?
Yeah, perfect.
She went back. She told him, and then she called me back like within the next 10 minutes or so. He said yes. So this is where Flipster comes in now. Because all along, that was one of the things that was hindering me too. Contracts. You know, I was kind of like skeptical, you know, especially not dealing with certain, having or dealing with too much attorneys or trying to figure out who I'm going to work with and stuff like that. So, just kind of
what's cool in Flipster is you have the digital contracts. We call it offer generator, but you literally just pull it up, it autofills some stuff. You put some things in there. It's my contracts that I've been improving and updating for 20 years, so it's got everything you need in there. And then boom, you send it and then they can digitally sign back. Right.
That's exactly what I did. I used, that's where the Flipster came in now, because once I had the acceptance saying, yes, he's going to take it, I had to move fast. As you said, real estate, we can't wait. Somebody else come in now, try to grab it. So what I did, went right into the Flipster because I was studying it already. I already had it. So I was studying it, watching the videos, doing the demo as you were showing, and doing, little skit demos while I'm practicing for the real deal. So when the real deal came now, I already was knowledgeable.
You were ready. Yeah. So, okay. So you send him over the digital contract. He signs it at 40, right? Now I want to point out something here, Dwayne. This is so important because people think there's this idea circulating the market that wholesalers steal equity. They call it equity theft. And the idea here is that the seller in distress is some sort of a protected class, and they're not capable of making sound business decisions around selling their house. Correct. Which is absolutely ridiculous, because if someone can buy a house, they certainly can sell a house, right? Like if they have the wherewithal to buy real estate, they also have the wherewithal to sell real estate. And here you have an appraiser, somebody who knows value.
Correct.
He knows the value of the property, but what did he do? He sold it to Dwayne at a discount for the speed and convenience of a cash offer. This is what everybody has to understand. He did not want to wait, do the work, list it, fix it, inspection, appraisal. Didn't want to do any of that.
He told me that. I don't want to. He said, D, I can maybe fix this, but you see me, I'm an old man now. I see that you're, as he was talking, he was a very nice seller. Even when I was dealing with the title company said, yo, I've never met a seller like this before because
this educated, this smart, knows what he's doing, understands what's happening, and still sells it at a discount.
Correct.
Yeah, and he was dead on because you wholesaled it for the value he appraised it for.
But you know what's so funny? We're going to get somewhere. The story is crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy because that's why I don't want it to go out there like that, because I want to hear what you got to say first, because I learned a lot from you just watching and, learning these words,
Yeah.
So what happened? Sent over the digital contract. He signs it. I said, okay. Now this is where sometimes, just by me studying, prior to this, I would be studying and I'm like, yo, what's the next step? What's the next step? Even though I know, but it always, I was fearful of things like, damn, man, maybe I'm going to get it and then I'm going to mess it up. But this time I knew for sure, like, okay, I know the next steps. I know.
You knew you had a good deal.
I knew I had a good deal. So I'm like, okay.
And you knew the next step.
So I just said, okay, got the contract. But once he signed it, before he signed it, when I knew I was in negotiation and everything, I already scoped out and seen the buyers. So what I did, I just jot down those buyers and say, okay, if he signs this contract.
You're talking, hold on, Dwayne, you're talking, so I call this the neighborhood flipper method. But what you did is you went in the local area where the deal was and you looked at people who have been flipping in that neighborhood.
Correct.
So you're like, okay, there's flippers in this area. They're right here. I can see their flips. These are potential buyers for my deal.
Correct.
Got it.
So that's what I did. I looked. I said, okay, I see like 5 potential, 6. How many of there was? It was plenty of them. So I just jotted them down. Okay, I got some buyers ready. So as soon as he signs it, I have a ratified contract. So now I can just start calling these people. Signed it. I got it. He said, I signed it. I looked in the Flipster. It got back to me.
There it is. Yeah.
As soon as they got it to me.
Picked up the phone, called those buyers.
Right away.
Or those investors.
So I started calling them. Within, I would say, not even 20 minutes, I got like 4 people already like, yo, listen, give me this. I'm like, wow. So this is where everything kind of went like haywire a little bit. I don't know if it went haywire or this is where you're gonna explain, because what happened was, the deal was so hot. I knew, because I'm like, okay, I could get this off for at least the appraisal price. You know what I mean? Or a little bit under. So I just said, you know what? I ain't gonna go too crazy because I don't want the seller. I'm thinking, do I double close this? Do I? You know what I mean? I'm like, yo, I don't want to double close my first deal. I just want to get this one done. You know what I mean? But I'm like, D, you're taking a risk here because you're gonna make this amount, and then this, if the seller's gonna see it, it's gonna disclose on the HUD one. But I'm like, the seller was really transparent with me. He was cool. And as I said, when I was talking to the title company, they told me themselves, like, yo, this guy is very nice. We call him, he answers. He was on board with everything. So I just say, you know what?
You were worried he would see you selling it and making $25,000, and you were worried that he would be offended by that and bust up the deal.
Correct.
Okay. So how'd you handle it?
So I just said, you know what? I'm gonna just go with God's faith, man. I just say, I'm not gonna double close because I gotta go and call these other people and get some transactional funding. So I'm like, yo, listen, this is my first deal. I just want to see if I could get this clean. I spoke to the seller. He was in good vibes and everything. So let me just go. So I just said, okay, I'm just gonna put it out there as a regular. So I just, got the contract, put the earnest money down, 30 days. I told him 20 days. That included the weekend, because in the Flipster, it shows 20 days could be, I guess, like 27 because I'm including Saturday and Sundays and stuff like that. So that's what happened. So I just started calling the buyers. The buyers reached out. They said I had a few buyers, but this is where it went haywire because I think the second buyer that reached out to me, he was so excited. So I'm like, yo, listen, I want 65. Because what happened, he was like, what do you want for it? So I'm like, damn, man. So I started thinking about you, like, yo, what Jerry said again. I'm like, yo, he said, you gotta, if you get a good deal like that, you should get an open house. I totally forgot about the open house.
Yeah, the idea there is you want to get as many eyeballs on your deal so you can extract the highest paying buyer.
Correct. Yeah. So I had,
but honestly, Dwayne, I mean, that is a little bit more of like advanced on your first deal. You just want to get it done. That
right.
Don't get too hung up on that part.
Correct. All right. Yeah. So what I did.
So you're okay.
I said, all right, you know what? I missed out the open house because the second buyer came and was like, yo, we'll give you 58 for it right now. We'll sign everything good to go. No, you don't even got to look at it, nothing. So I'm like, wow. Wow.
You're like, should I take this? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, so I said, you know what? This is where it kind of went, because this is why I don't want it to go, because I said, okay, all right. I said, yes. But what happened was I had so much other potential people calling me back. So once I didn't sign the contract, you know what I mean? I didn't sign the assigned contract, you know what I mean? So the buyer who's going to buy it, I had to call him back and let him know, like, yo, listen, I got other offers, I know I agreed, but I didn't sign the contract. And, other offers came in and, what we gonna do here? So, I guess that kind of ruffled his feathers, man. That's why
he was mad about that.
Yeah, he was very upset. So what I told him, I said, yo, listen. He's like, I said, listen, if everything goes through, don't worry. I'll compensate you for what you did anyway. You see what I'm saying? And he's like, all right, whatever. He just shrugged it off, whatever. So long story short.
Compensate him how? What do you mean?
As far as like, because what happened was he was a realtor that found he had his buyers. So he's like, okay, I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna give you the deal to give to your buyers. And I know you went to your buyers and did all that work. I'll give you a little fee out of mine, a little, whatever, $500 or $1,000, just for what you did. You see what I'm saying? So you won't, so I don't ruffle his feathers too much. But he was still like, whatever. So I said, all right, cool. I'll do that as the deal goes. So now, here comes the next buyer. So when I told this buyer now, say, listen, I already got an offer for 58. That's what happened. I'm about to take it and we're about to be done. So I said, I was at 65. I said, you come with 65, we good to go. That buyer said, listen, I'll take it 65, no inspection. He said 65 and $5,000 down, because I told him
earnest money,
$5,000 EMD, non-refundable, because I'm not playing. And this is where it kind of went haywire, because I forgot another step again. Are you actually buying the property or you're wholesaling it? But I remembered in your contract, it has that clause in there. You got to buy it. But what happened was this buyer, when I told him, he said, what title company you're using? And I told him the name. And he said, oh, wow, that's the title company I use. So I said, okay, who's your contact? He called her name. So I said, wow, that's my contact. So I said, what a small world. Out of all these investors and everybody, you're the one, we actually work with the same company. So he said, yo, look, he sent me a text with the lady's name and all, the same lady I'm dealing with. So I said, all right. So I said, all right, you know what? This seems like cool. But what happened was he told me in the contract that he's going to assign it to Jerry. He's going to assign it to his own company, because this is what he do. So I'm thinking like, okay, I understand. You might have a flipping company. You might have a holding company. So if you buy it in this one, you might could just assign it over there. You could hold it till you're ready to fix it. But I'm like, yo, Jerry said, don't do that. You know what I mean? That's a risk. But I'm like, it's my first deal. I don't want the seller to see what's going on. He knows my title company. They let me vouch for me. They vouched for me and him and said, yeah, he closes a lot of deals. They showed me the HUDs and everything. So I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna go with this one. I'm gonna go with this gun. Long story short, he signs it. So he puts the earnest money down. But before he puts the earnest money down, he calls me one day after he signed the contract and everything. And he calls me like, yo, man, I'm at the property, man. I wanted to see if I could get in. I said, yeah, you could get in. But remember, in the contract, you only have a certain amount of time. So I'm going to give it to you now. So make sure you do what you're doing and everything, because you have until at the end, like it was like maybe about like 12 o'clock. I said, you got till 3 o'clock to put the 5,000 down. So you could go look at it, but make sure you got that earnest money ready by 3 o'clock. So he's like, okay, I got you. So he goes in, he texts me right away. D, this is lovely. I got you. He wires the 5,000. Then the title, he shows it to me like, look. So the title calls me and says, yo, your buyer wired over XYZ.
Okay.
So now we're just waiting for closing. So, it took what? Maybe 26 days, because what happened was, this is where it got tricky again. He's assigning it, right? So I guess whoever he's assigned to his end buyer or his end buyer, and he ends up making 20.
But it went through, right?
It went through. It's crazy, because I said, yo, I looked at the HUD, the title called me and said, yo, we ready to close. It was a little hiccup at the end, because he was like, I called title. I said, yo, we ready? She's like, I'm ready. We just waiting on the end buyer. They got one paperwork that they got to sign, and I sent it over to them since yesterday. They haven't signed it yet. So I called the buyer. So he's not answering me. So I'm like, okay, here we go. So I text him, yo, what's up, man? I thought you was 100% to go. So he texted me and said, D, we ready to go. We're signing the paper right now. Title should have it in a few minutes. So I said, okay. Next thing I know, title sent me an email. We're funding. And that was it, basically.
Yeah. So are you thinking that, co-wholesaling, or, we call that daisy chaining when people do that. That's a derogatory use of it, because it means other wholesalers are taking wholesalers' deals. They're adding a fee on top of that and then pushing it out. Right. The problem with daisy chaining and a lot of wholesalers is they have a very low performance, so they push stuff out. It kind of muddies up everything, because now the market's super confused. I've seen my deals on other people's websites, on Facebook groups, and I'm like, dude, who's pushing my deals out at higher numbers? And it's really can be pretty shady, and it can be, just the ugly part of our business. Right. But it's very common for another wholesaler to have a higher paying buyer. Right. And then you work with them, and you either split the whole assignment, or they give you your number and then they add their number on. So what he did, nothing was wrong with what he did. The only thing I would do differently, like if I were to be coaching him, was I would be like, dude, don't mess with your other wholesaler. Don't tell him you're assigning it to your company when your intent is to assign it to another buyer. Just tell him, just say, hey, look, Dwayne, I can get you 65. I got a buyer that'll pay a little bit more than that. Are you cool if I bring my buyer in? It's all tight. I'll do the non-refundable. Like and then see, the whole issue that everybody constantly has is transparency and disclosure. Correct. Because if you just know what's going on, then you can make informed decisions. When you don't know what's going on and you're in the dark, that ain't cool. And when a seller's in the dark and they don't know what's going on, that ain't cool. That's where the regulators and the consumer protection people, everyone gets bent out of shape. Correct. Everyone's been out of shape when it's misleading and it's not clear. Just tell people what the hell you're doing. And in most cases, if you're on the up and up, everyone's fine with it.
I agree, man. I agree. So, that was the deal in a nutshell, man. We closed. They called. They said, ready to go.
So you had a way better deal than you thought.
Yeah. Really and truly. I thought, because I seen, and it's so funny because now that I'm actually in the state, and I'm looking, there was a few more on the same street that was selling below that price.
Here's how you would have gotten that other 20 is rather than only talk to a couple of people and take the first one that brings a good number. If you would have done the open house, slow down a little bit, giving yourself a little more time, push it out, get 20 people at that property, that $20,000 additional fee would have surfaced to the top.
Correct.
Because what you do is you say, what I do, the right way to do this is to say asking price 65, but there's going to be a open house inspection on Wednesday between 12 and 2. Highest and best is going to be on the following day at 5 o'clock. Put in your best price. And now you're not giving somebody a number. You're giving them a suggested asking price. And then when people call you and they're like, hey, dude, can you get this for me? Then what you say is you say, look, there's a lot of people interested. All I can say is put in your best price if you want to get this deal. Then you get 85 as an offer, not 65.
That's why I think when he said, I'll give you the 65, man, I'll give you the 60, because he was so adamant about it. I'll give you the 65. I said, all right, cool. I'm gonna make a quote real quick. My first ones. I just wanted to get it out.
But Dwayne, come on, you made 25 on your first deal, right? Who cares that you didn't make 85 or you did sell it that you didn't make 45?
45, right?
Right? Yeah, like
correct.
Because you learned a lot there. Now on the next one, you'll know, hey, I got to work my deals to the market a lot more. I can't just take the first good offer that comes along.
Yep.
But you need to go through that to learn that. Otherwise, you don't know that.
Correct. And as I said, it was your material and that helped along the way because I had other softwares and platforms that I was using, but it just felt like a waste because it wasn't giving me certain things that I needed access to.
Yeah.
Yours now was like, with all the knowledge that I had already, all I needed was a good structured contract that I can read and understand it. And I know that I can use this. So that's what I did.
Great. Yeah. Can you imagine though, Dwayne, like think about this. You got paid $25,000 to learn on the job, literally going through the process, making mistakes along the way or whatever, and got paid $25,000 to do that. Where else can you get paid $25,000 to learn how to do something?
Correct.
It's pretty cool.
It is.
Yeah. So Dwayne, you're a flipping genius. Guys, leave a comment and say, Dwayne, you're a flipping genius. I love that story.